This is the first Tuesday of the month Waupaca City Council meeting.
We're going into the Committee of the Whole part of our meeting. Council members and staff, we have the same council members and staff that we had at the regular meeting. You have an agenda in front of you, plus Kathy has just handed out some new and improved numbers, so we would need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Peterson, second by Olson, that we approve the agenda with those additional handouts. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. Why could such a short agenda anticipate such a long night? All right, fiscal year 2018 budget. I think we're going to go with the enterprise funds first, right, and then move into the tax supported part. So you're going to start with the water, is that?
Water department.
All right.
So that's one of the handouts that I gave you was the water fund. We are looking at a 3% simplified rate increase effective January 1st, so that item will be coming to you in December. Other than that, the capital that we're going to be borrowing for was in the capital plan that we went through, and part of the borrow was the 2016 looping project that we did not get the safe drinking water loan funds for. We have the Lake Street water main replacement. We have the City Hall parking lot water main replacement, and $300 and some $1,000 for the replacement of the meters so that we can get them on the Beacon program, and to what else was there? Well, rehabs. Justin? Go ahead.
Well, 3 and 6 rehab.
And I believe that was it. So if you're following along on the web page, there is a tab for the water utility. It's on like page 70 or that on the web page that that I had Josh put up tonight. But otherwise, everybody at the council here has a paper version. Nothing's changed. Everything's the same. 1% increase for the employees, the 3% absorption of the health insurance, and I believe that's it. It's very, the departments did very well in keeping costs down and not taking on anything new unless they could absorb that with other cuts within their budget. So that was one of the things that we'll be able to do with the water utility, is to absorb with the 3% increase some of the stuff that we've been paying cash for maintenance.
So Kathy, I got a couple of quick questions here. Sorry, Mary. We got under the meter expense, that's where the meter replacement is. So
meter expense, actually, it's down on the bottom. It's in capital. There's 305,000.
Okay, so why is there such an increase between the 2017 and the 2018 budget for the meter expense then? Is that right, or am I on the wrong line here? First page, yeah.
Oh, that was because we moved one full-time or 2,080 hours of the Public Works employee into the meter maintenance. So what we're doing is to help with the installation of the meters. We have one full-time Public Works, on average salary of one full-time Public Works employee that's going into the water utility to help with the installation of the new meters.
So we're gonna see that much in reduction in the general fund?
Yes, we did. But you don't see it in Public Works. It's as if it was a transfer from the water utility to the general fund and revenue.
Oh, because they're paying them for it. Okay.
Okay?
And when you talk about the net income, is that a cash flow number?
No, not necessarily, because there's about $268,000 worth of depreciation in this utility. So it's not total cash flow. But there also isn't the 300 and some thousand that we need for principal payment of the debt. So one of the things that I will have for the next, for the public hearing is a cash flow projection for this fund and the sewer fund and the online fund.
Yeah, all of the enterprise funds, we certainly should have a cash flow.
Yes.
Right?
And a debt service coverage, now that I have the new debt schedules from the refinancing. So that'll be taken into account also.
Okay.
Okay?
Anybody have any questions on the water utility fund? So understand that there's a proposal for a 3% increase on your water bill then when you get that start, and that will be starting January 1st, or?
It'll be noticed out there for January 1st, yes.
Okay, so everybody will see an increase in 3% on your water part of your bill.
And that'll be on the consumption part of your bill.
Okay.
If we needed to increase any of the other fees, we would have to go for a full rate case to be able to do that. So this will be just on the consumption, and I believe the public fire protection.
Kathy, when was the last rate increase for water?
2011. It's been 6 years.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't saying that negatively, quite honestly, but yeah, I mean, that's a good point, Paul, that 3%, we've said this before, we want to be careful that we don't just do one huge increase and then wait 5-6 years and then do another one. It'd be easier to gradually keep it going here so that we don't see huge one.
And it's going to be 3% on our consumption rate, so it's $2.67 per 1,000 gallons. So it's 3% on $2.67. So you're not talking a whole lot when you break down that percentage. So it's a little misleading. But we'll have that information available when we put out the notice for the rate increase to the customers.
And that rate case will be done in-house, so
Yeah,
we don't
it's
have
simplified.
to pay
It's
consultants to do that.
Justin, anything you want to add at all to the water budget?
I think you guys pretty much covered it.
Okay, good.
the sewer utility, again, no increase in the rates. We are putting away the money we receive from the chain for reserves, as well as part of the agreement. We're supposed to be putting some money away. I believe we have, most of it is the capital projects that we're going to be doing, and that's part of the refi and new money revenue bond for the sewer utility, which is going to be the cathodic
Protection.
cathodic protection. What else, Justin?
For next year.
Yeah.
The cathodic protection is the big thing. We got a truck on there and repainting the floors of a couple of our buildings at the treatment facility.
Which those two are not going to be borrowed, the truck and that, those are coming out of operations, so as part of maintenance. So they'll be paid for with the money within the sewer fund. But I believe we have engineering for Evans Street out there, and is this also the City Hall parking lot right?
Yes, but those numbers have to be refined as we get into the design here.
But at least we have the money, we'll have the money available for, when we borrow. But otherwise, there hasn't been any changes, other than we're looking at possibly seeing some cost savings from electric with the upgrades that we've done.
Yeah, just a couple of notes on the sewer fund. This is true probably on the water fund too, but when you look at the revenues, make sure you look at the detail of the revenues too, to understand it. We don't, you know, in our everyday life, we don't call borrowing money from the bank revenue, but that's how they handle it here. So that $340,000 increase in miscellaneous revenues is basically the amount that we're going to borrow for capital for 2018. And then under the customer service revenues, there is an increase in revenues there, almost $100,000. So
But that's not for rates. That's just based on us looking at,
I get that. Let me finish my
Okay.
question here. My question is that are we looking at, I mean, are we having more customers come online, or are we, what are we seeing here?
Our sewer utility is very stable. I mean, a lot of the improvements we've made in the plant, we're seeing improvements on. Electricity consumption is way down. Some of our chemical usage is way down.
I'm talking about revenue.
he's talking about revenues.
Well, but then if we have less expenses coming out, then it reflects on our revenues coming in, so.
Well,
correct?
no, because our rates are what our rates are. So our revenues are, the budgets are based on what I'm looking at as averages of the last 3 years actuals. So I'm looking at the fact that, you know, the residential's been steadily going down, but we are looking at commercial going up. So just some of the cost, just refining the budget and moving them the target a little bit more to where they're more with what the actuals are.
Okay, so you're basing it on historical.
I'm looking at historical, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And that's always going to change depending on how much consumption of water. So we still have, you know, if people are using less water, that means we should see less sewer revenues. But we're looking at 3-year averages on the revenues, and that's being conservative for projections.
Okay. Any questions there? So you'll see no increase in your sewer part of the water and sewer bill this next year. All right?
Online, Josh had gone and, where is it? On the last page of your packet.
The big thick one.
Your
Big,
big
thick
packet,
one.
your original packet.
The big thick one. Yeah.
And again, we're looking at some increases in revenues based on the grant and expanding the service area. I did add in for this budget the estimated amount that we're going to be getting back for the grant. So it's a balanced budget. But there's nothing much. You've already said everything in motion with expanding the service and possibly a couple of increases in costs. So, did you put in the increase in the rates in this budget, Josh?
No, this has nothing, the rates aren't in there, and the revised spectrum pricing is not in there, since that was just approved recently. Just a couple notes on the online budget. I just kind of made I think a estimate that we'd grow our customer base an additional 50 customers by the end of next year, and that all depends on how the project goes, how fast we move. And I think that's a good guess. And I think outside of spending the additional money and equipment for the grant, I've added in some cost toward tower leases in the budget next year. So those are kind of two things different than what you saw for this year's budget.
But otherwise, that's all we have for that.
I have a question.
Sure.
I'm looking at the third to last page. We have, I'm assuming miscellaneous is the $32,000 is the grant amount?
That would be the grant reimbursement.
Yes.
Okay. Then there's grant expense of $52,000. I don't get that.
We have, it's not a full,
It's a 50-50.
50-50
We pay half,
grant?
the state
gotcha.
pays half.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions on the online account? Again, remember that this is an enterprise fund, so it's outside of our taxes. We do not use tax dollars to fund this, as we don't sewer or water either. I mean, they take care of it with their own revenues.
okay. So now you want to go to the first packet, first page, and to start what the tax levy funds are. And I'm sorry I don't have a PowerPoint because I just finished this up just before I came down to the council meeting. And it all starts with this wonderful tax levy limit worksheet that I have to do with the state of Wisconsin. And we had a levy of $3,471,000 last year. Third page in. And I have to remove last year's levy for debt service. I get to add whatever our net new construction is, which was 0.67%, which allows us only to increase our levy by $14,000 approximately. And then I can do some other adjustments. Somehow the Department of Revenue has informed us that we didn't use all of our levy capacity last year or for 2015. So we have approximately $12,000 of levy capacity left on the table. However, we can only use either 15s or 16s levy adjustment. I can't use both. So there will be a request for a resolution to use 15's $6,981 of remaining levy towards our 2017 levy. And then I get to add back in what we need for debt service for 2018's budget, which is going to be $1,144,000 approximately. So that gives us a total levy of $3,320,000, which is a decrease because I'm not using as much for debt service levy. And it's a decrease of about $150,000. And that is what levy limit does to us. We can only pretty much adjust for operations that amount less the debt service. So we are going to increase the general fund levy by about $20,000, which helps me with costs for the 1% raises and the health insurance, and other costs with reductions in revenues, but increases in state aids and leave the levy for the library the same at 352,000. We're going to increase the transit levy. That fund has been seeing decreases in funding from the federal government and the state, and it really needs cash. So we're going to give it $10,000 of levy. And then the airport is again left at $60,000, which covers pretty much the cost of the management, little less than the cost of the management of the airport. The rents, when we get to the airport, the rents, the fuel sales pretty much help to cover the cost of the operations. And then we have our debt service levy. So our levy is going to be $3,317,985 in essence. So, which is a decrease. And I'm able to do that and still operate the city for 2018.
Kathy, I have a question, please.
Sure.
When we were listening to the gentleman talk about restructuring our debt, they mentioned that I believe they said something about $31 million in increased tax base. Where I was a bit confused by
Okay,
that.
I'm going to get to it with this here. So the handout I gave you with the pie chart on top. It shows that our total assessed value with the TIF is $415,194,200, and that's what your tax bill is based on your assessed value. The state, so that you can compare my tax bill with Waupaca's tax bill or Madison's tax bill, has an equalized tax value. And this is what 426,400,200, which is high, the 31 million higher. It's our equalized value. So it's the value the state does so that everybody is equal across the state. So what happens with the equalized value is that the school district, the county, and the tech college take their budgets and then they apportion their share based on the equalized value for the city. So because our equalized value went up 31 million, our taxpayers will be getting a bigger apportionment share of the county, school district, and tech college levy. So that portion of the tax bill is going to go up. So if you look at the different rates, this is with the TIF increment that's included above, which also increased this year by about $230,000 because our TIFs increased in value this year. So there's about $2 million that's going to be going to the TIF districts next year for debt service. So if you look at the pie chart, the city makes up 34% of the tax bill, the school district 39%. Right now, the county's number is an estimate. They have not passed their levy, but that's an estimate that I received from them. They're 23% and 4% to the tech college. On next year's tax bill, there will not be a state of Wisconsin portion of the tax bill. The state has done away with that. So they will not be putting, which last year was 67,000. There will not be collecting any levy for, I believe it was for the DNR on this. So if you go to the next page, this is the comparison. So you're seeing, in essence, a 16-cent decrease in the mill rate because of no state tax. The county is going to go up, based on their estimate, by 47 cents. We're going to go down 43 cents. Waupaca School District's going to go up 46 cents. The tech college is going to go up 3 cents, and that's all because of the apportionment of our equalized value. And that our share of the levy has gone, of their levy has gone up. And then I don't have the school levy credit until November 15th, so that I just have that as a placard in there as the same amount. So in essence, the tax rate is going to go up about 82 cents per thousand. Now, I still don't have the lottery credit or first dollar, but that's going to affect also the bottom line of each of the residential tax bill. But the city's portion is going to be going down 43 cents. And on the next page, I wanted to show that, in essence, when you take the TIF district out of the mix, now this is a breakdown. The page before that had the TIF increment in it. This is the TIF, this is just the levy portion. And doing comparison year to year, our rate is going, without the levy, without these rates are without the TIF increment. And so you're looking at what their rate would be without having that increment. And so our rate, if we did not have TIF districts, would be $7.99 next year. There's approximately $400.96 that's collected for that, for that TIF increment. But what I wanted to show you is that this budget for the tax levy budgets is a 0% net, or a $0 increase to the levy, to the mill rate, sorry. So we're going to, in essence, reduce the mill rate by 50 cents and increase it for the TIF districts by 50 cents, so the net effect is zero impact to the taxpayer for this on the city's portion. With this budget. And that's all because we've been able to look at what money we have for debt service and be able to adjust the levy down because of the planning that we're doing with and the refinancing that we're doing with debt service, and making our TIFs more able to pay their debt with the increment and not have to have any additional levy for support. So the budget that you're going to see now for the general fund is and the other tax supported budgets is a zero mill rate effect. Please don't ask me to cut anymore. The departments have done an excellent job in what, if you looked at the synopsis that Henry provided in the packet, you know, we're looking at a 1% increase for our employees. We're looking at a 3% increase in the health insurance, increasing the opt-out so that we don't have those costs, hiring full-time for 2 part-times, increasing the hours for the senior coordinator. Justin's made a lot of cost-saving measures within the public works on our energy costs, and Brennan was able to renegotiate the very large increase from the assessor this year, to have it go over a couple of years, so that we didn't have a $6,000 increase in the assessor's service in 1 year. So I think a lot of the departments have really stepped up when we know that we can only afford so much, and have come in with very, very lean budgets. So if you look at the summary of the general fund, again, it's going to be short about $13,000. Most of it is because of the fact that we aren't getting any extra money from any of the other funds or move additional costs to, other than that one Public Works employee, average employee costs for the meters. We are looking at a reduction in permit fees because we did increase it the year before for Bethany's permit. If we get more development, we could easily make up that about $14,000 that we're short within the general fund. But in 16, we did have a positive and put $11,000 back into fund balance. So the net effect between the 2 years, and hopefully 17 will be another good year that we'll be able to add to fund balance. I don't see that $13,000 shortfall within the budget not being balanced to be that big of a deal. So we can go through each of the departments again and have go over what was changed. But if you look at most of these departments, they're all going down. Any questions? Do you want me to go any farther?
No.
Well, the department heads are prepared to answer any questions that you guys might have tonight. Obviously, you know, this is this the third session on budgets that we've had? So you've seen the detail before, and you're just seeing the how it works out when you put it all together tonight. And since the staff and Kathy and the staff have presented this at the mayor's department heads meeting, there has been some reduction since then too. So they have worked diligently to make sure that our mill rate stays level from the year before. And that's the number that most people look at when they see that, at least from a city standpoint, mill rate. I'm not saying that, you know, overall, because there are other taxing authorities on there too, but from a city standpoint, you're going to see a level mill rate if you were to look from 16 to 17.
For us to cut and have a zero increase in the bottom line right now, we would have to cut $355,000 out of our budget to make it so that nobody got an increase for everybody else's levy. But right now, we have made adjustments within our levy so that the impact of the city's portion of the tax bill is zero. I fretted, I fretted with this budget when I saw the net new construction amount. But I think, like I said, the departments have been very creative and have stepped up to make sure that the impact, we were able to do that with our operations.
Hey, Just a couple of notes. I mean, obviously, Kathy talked about the TIF and you know, in an ideal world, if you were to pay off the debts and they would get back on the tax rolls for all the taxing authorities, that would lower our mill rate. But also, don't forget that we still have debt in those TIFs too, so it's not as easy as just closing it out to reduce it. We would still have that debt, and we would be responsible then the city would be responsible for 100% of that debt versus passing it on to the other authorities, and that's the arrangement that you have when you have TIF. So it's good to see that, and that's our ultimate goal, is to close those TIFs and reduce that amount. The other thing that, and we even talked a little bit about that tonight too, is, you know, how are we going to market these properties we have within our community? Well, we can see that growth has a lot to do with how we can grow as a city too, as far as being able to do things within our community, and we have not seen a whole lot of growth in the last few years, and so hopefully things are going to get better, and the growth will get larger, and that will help us in future budgets. You know, the idea is to try and keep the mill rate the same or lower it each year, but use additional growth funds to keep up with increased in cost of living expenses and things too. So, I mean, that's my observation as we look at what this budget is. Again, as I said, as I told the department heads, they should be prepared to answer any questions, and it seems like some of the biggest questions that we usually have is dealing with capital, and you can see that most of the general expenses are the same or are better than they were the year before, so you can see that they worked very hard to try and keep it level. Especially when you figure that our biggest cost is our labor, obviously, and we do have a 1% increase in their wages in there, plus we had to pay an increase in health insurance this year too. So, I mean, to be able to eat that up and keep the mill rate the same, I thought that was pretty good.
Does anybody want to go over any of the other funds? I can do that. Otherwise, like I said, the budgets have stayed the same, because they had to. There was no money. So increases are minimal. If anything, if a line item went up, another line item had to go down. So I think that's played made a lot of impact on this budget, to be able to say your general fund operating budget went down $171,000. So.
Yeah, and under state law now too, of course, and we've been under this for quite a few years now, but we don't benefit by reducing the general fund budget because it hurts us in the future. So we have to be careful on that.
Expenditure restraint.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a good portion of our revenue, so.
Kathy, was there anything different with the airport budget?
No, the only thing would be is I think Beth has had, we left the snow plowing the same. The agreement is that the management gets the same rate increase as the cities, which would be a 1% increase. A lot of the airport costs that fluctuate is going to be fuel, whether or not, how much fuel I got in inventory at the end of the year, how much fuel are we buying. I know that I've talked to Beth about the fact that we haven't been selling jet fuel, and that we need to look at whether or not we're providing jet fuel at the airport, because that's a cost of carrying the fuel, and we're not selling it. So if I buy $30,000 worth of jet fuel and I don't sell it, I'm out $30,000. So
I guess what kind of caught my eye is that was, that there was 134,000 beginning balance fund in 16, and then we're looking at 71,000 beginning balance, or excuse me, 17, and then 71,000 beginning balance fund in 18. And I was just wondering why that difference.
It's got a lot to do with the estimates I'm gonna see. I know that she had a loss in 16. But we've been cutting the amount that we have for tax levy to that. So that's another fund that may have to shift, because I don't see the fuel sales is, you know, where am I gonna get some of the levy that I can give to the airport? Or I need to either raise rents for hangars at the airport, or make, gas more attractable cost-wise, so people come to our airport to fill up. I mean, there's a couple things. She's got several different revenue sources besides the tax levy. I know at one time they were doing a lot of fuel sales. Our fuel sales have dropped off in the airport. So I think that that's one of the things that the airport board will have to look at, if it wants to start putting more money back into fund balance. It does still have a very healthy fund balance for operations-wise, but to continue to pull from that, I think that that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't too long ago that $40,000 was pulled out of there,
Right,
and it just was concerned that it would get too low.
right. So, but I am monitoring that and watching that, and like I said, I see the fuel sales on a weekly basis, so I know that they haven't been as high as before. So but I've talked to Beth on that, so. And the other thing, like I said, would be to look at rents for the hangars. Okay?
Department heads, anything you want to add to what Kathy's talking about tonight? Everything's clear? As I normally say, clear as mud? So. All right. Any more detail? You guys, we're going to have now remember the next meeting, before the next meeting will be a public hearing. I give opportunity for citizens to voice their opinions, as well as council members and staff. You have that opportunity. You know, it's not easy to just go out and talk numbers with on these things when they're that detailed as they are, but obviously listen to what you hear out there, and if you have any questions, bring them back.
And I'm willing to, you know, sit down with anybody and go through the budget and tell you why the numbers are what they are. And I've got 3 years under my belt with these numbers, and it's very complicated. I try to make it as simple as possible for you so that you can explain it. And I'm hoping that with this next presentation to be able to give you some of the graphs that you'll be able to share with. And I hope, you know, some of it, like this first one with what the allocation is of the tax levy between the different jurisdictions, can help you, and then explain to why our share's going down, but everybody else's is going up. And it's not because the school district may have said that they lowered their levy, but because we have a higher portion of our equalized value, we get a bigger share. And that's why our portion of the school tax levy is going up.
Which means that other municipalities within the school district are going down. Yeah, so, I mean, we're paying a bigger portion of the school
Because of our
district.
equalized value.
Yeah.
Which we have no control of. That's the number that the state creates.
And that's no different with any of our budgets. I mean, our fire district budget is the same way. Since the equalized value went up, we are paying more towards the fire district than we did the year before.
Mayor, can I take you up on your offer to mention a couple things?
Yeah, absolutely, Henry.
The first.
Wait, should we vote it? No.
You might want to use
I've
the
been
mic.
pretty quiet tonight. The first responder money is in the budget. That is with the mayor's leadership.
What,
We
5,000?
put $5,000 in there. I can tell you the city of Waupaca's budgeted money, and I believe the town of Waupaca and Farmington have looked favorably on helping fund the first responders, so that's exciting that they're gonna get going, I think, this year. And it's probably worth noting on the TIFs that it is staff's plan to bring forward a proposal to close TIF 7 this next year. Now, the assessed value in that TIF is what, 2 million, 3 million?
The equalized value, the increment is 2 million.
Yeah.
To explain to everybody what TIF 7 is again.
Oh, I'm sorry,
TIF 7.
that's,
Gusmer.
yeah, Gusmer Enterprises, Ware Street.
Which has been a really good arrangement between the city and Gusmer's. Obviously, they've made numerous expansions out there, so I'm sure the other taxing authorities, the county and the school district and Fox Valley Tech will be real happy to see that added to their tax roll too. The increase in increment, at least, yeah.
Well, the only other thing, and I wish Alan was here because he would probably make a case for it, but I don't know that we can afford to do it. There's nothing in the organized deer hunt in the budget. But I can tell you that I've gotten a number of requests to possibly hunt on city land. And so that might be something you want to consider, is to maybe look at that, and that maybe that's something we would allow, maybe with some stipulations. Right now you can't hunt on public property. But are there some parcels where maybe that might make sense to allow it? But I don't know that we're ready for it this year, because it would have to be, you know, from January to maybe the end of March. So I don't know that much is going to happen with a controlled hunt. But I can tell you, my office has probably gotten 6 or 8 inquiries in the last 6 weeks on hunting in the city. And I always send them over to the police department for their permit to discharge. I think some of it is happening in the city.
I can vouch for that. A fellow I know has come and got a permit, and he's already taken 3 deer in the city, virtually in his backyard, on his own property. So it's, you know, when they do come, they do find deer.
And we did publish a piece and get it out there a little bit. When we did our survey, there were maybe 20 property owners or 25 that said people could hunt on their land. So we just wrote a letter and said, hey, here are the rules. If you know you want to allow that, you have family, friends, and you're comfortable with it, you can, you know, do it. So we put some information out there. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? Again, this was just FYI tonight. We'll be moving forward with passing the budget probably at the next meeting, if that works for you. If there's nothing else, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Hagan. Second by Hackett, that we adjourn till our next regular scheduled city council meeting. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against? Motion carried. We are adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming, watching, attending, so forth. Drive safe.